This story begins when two girls were sitting in a cafe talking about one thing. The girl said it's a great idea, since a lot of people have been writing their short stories lately. Her friend said that since she decided to do this, how could a crazy novel fan like her not help? The girl replied that it was just an impulsive decision. She didn't even have any thoughts about it. She would listen to her friend and write that way. The girl said, "Okay, just let her trust her and everything will be fine." Then the girl took her friend's computer and started looking at what she had already recorded there. The main character's name should be Liana Elidith, and she is the lady of the Count's family. She said it's a good enough title. Also, the main character should definitely be blonde with long blonde hair down to her waist, and let the eyes be bluish-gray. The girl was surprised and asked what blue-gray meant. Does she have some kind of eye disease or something? And the girl said that why pay attention to such trifles? It was enough that a beautiful picture appeared in her head. Then she thought about it, and after that she said that it would be really beautiful, and she wanted to make the main male character the crown prince. Then she asked her friend if this was too typical. The girl replied that she had very correct thoughts. The main character should definitely be made a crown prince, must have bright golden hair with a little shine, and let there be scarlet-colored eyes. The girl took back her notebook and started writing it all down, saying that she thought she and the main character were right for each other. Then she asked her friend, since that already sounded pretty good. She agreed and said that it was so interesting that she could already imagine it being a success. Then the girl who is writing the novella said that she has already started, and she thinks it will work out thanks to her friend. And when the novella becomes famous, and that one makes a lot of money, then they should definitely eat beef. They had this conversation about a month ago. The friend listened to her very attentively and wrote a fantasy novel. It had a great title, Creating the Countess's Love. Well, it all worked out in the end. Not what they expected. No one showed any interest in the novella, and the friend couldn't make any money. And of course their plan to eat beef fell through. Also, this girl suddenly became a minor character in this very novel. It was as if she had been sleepless for days. And eventually, when I got home, I collapsed from exhaustion. And when I opened my eyes, I found myself in a completely unfamiliar place. The girl wondered, could this be the very rebirth they wrote about in the novels? But it was not the main theme of the novel. But at that moment a maid ran up to the girl and asked the mistress if her head was all right. She said the girl had fallen off the top of the hill behind the garden, had badly injured her head, arms and legs, and had been unconscious like that for 2 weeks. And then as she came to her senses, this happened. At first, of course, because of the incomprehensible luxurious room, as well as foreign surroundings and, of course, the way her appearance had changed, the girl fainted several times. But some time passed and the girl adapted. So far there were no particular problems. Everything was more or less in order. But more importantly, her trouble was that she and this secondary character have completely different personalities. It's ridiculous, of course. But unlike all the other characters Adeline herself created, the girl allowed her friends to come up with her own. The girl decided that it was a minor character, so it shouldn't be a big deal. And as a result, Adeline turned out to be beautiful and in character, and therefore popular. The girl constantly cared about the appearance of the main character, and also took her to various tea parties and masquerades. These she helped her humble charge to attend, approach the hereditary principal, thereby only confirming her role as the typical girlfriend of the protagonist. But the girl herself had never been in a relationship and had been at home for 30 years. She was always reluctant to meet people, and if she started to like someone, she just watched him from afar. And now the girl will have to help the protagonist to get together with the crown prince. And just thinking about it makes the girl feel lazy and her eyes darken. But then suddenly a maid came to Adeline and told her that the bathing water was ready. She thanked her immediately. The maid said she was welcome and asked why she kept addressing her as you after waking up. The girl became unpleasant and thought that the experience of working in the company left an indelible mark. She just can't speak informally. Adeline thought about the fact that everything was calm, so she could leave those troubling thoughts behind for a while. Everyone around her knows she hasn't recovered yet and is still sick. She needs to wait a bit and then go act. As she sat down in the tub, she thought as the water came. A brilliant thought immediately came to mind and asked the maid, Anna, if they had any beer. The girl was shocked. She said that Madame had not recovered yet after all. What kind of beer? She can't have it. She wanted to drink at least a mug, but the maid flatly said she couldn't, not while Adeline was still getting used to it. But things would have to calm down in time. The next day the girl went outside and was sitting at a small table when a maid came to her and told her that she had received a great many letters in the meantime. Anna added that Adeline had been unconscious for a very long time, and apparently everyone was very worried, Lady Haley as well as Lady Vivian. Then she took out the papers and said that even Crown Prince Uriel had sent a letter for her. Adeline. She hadn't been much interested before, but when she heard the prince's name, she was very surprised and asked, "Is it His Highness, the Crown Prince?" For her, it was very surprising. She couldn't even imagine that the Crown Prince would send her a letter. If she were the real Adeline, she would have brought the main character to him under that pretext. She doesn't even for a moment want to think about something so annoying. Then she turned to the maid and said that if she would prepare a paper for her, she would reply to everyone. She then brought her a piece of paper, and Adeline wrote a universal response thanking her for her concern and telling her that she wasn't quite well yet, so he apologizes for what he says. It's all in the letter. After that, she wished, "Have a nice day." Anna, when she had read it all, she said there were no flaws in the letter. "Of course not," the girl said then. "That's a good thing, too." And I thought to myself that I should speak politely, but at the same time not make promises about a meeting. This is how experience with many clients manifests itself. Then the maid asked, "So the mistress is not planning to attend any of the tea parties?" Adelina replied, "Of course." Anna was frightened and asked what it meant. How could that be? Then the girl asked, why should she go somewhere else to have tea, and then suffer the inconvenience of having tea at another house? She would rather spend the time in the comfort of her own home. And at the end she added that it was okay to spend that time with her and asked what she thought about it. But Anna said emphatically, no. She thanked Mistress for her words, but it was impossible. After that she said she would bring her some light snacks for tea. After Adeline awakened, Anna casually kept repeating that many people were looking for a meeting with Madame. But the girl decided that since she was a lover of spending time alone, she had the opportunity to live like this. So why should she waste her time on all these parties? After that, as expected, no more letters came from anyone, including the Crown Prince. That's all Adeline wanted. A few days later, however, her tranquility was disturbed, and a letter came to the girl. When Adeline opened and read it, she was shocked. The sender was Liana Elidith, the protagonist of the novel. Now it was clear to the girl who she really was. She had thought that Liana cared about her loved ones, but her letter was more like an interrogation. Long story short, Liana says she wants to see the prince. So she wants to see Adeline by her side, even if she's not feeling well. Then suddenly Anna saw the girl's frightened face and asked, "Does it really say something bad?" Mistress said that Liana was proposing to go to the ball together next week, and she thought to herself that there must still be rumors in high society that she was ill, and she either hadn't heard them or was ignoring them on purpose. Then Anna asked worriedly if she didn't want to meet Lady Liana. It had been so long since they had seen each other. Adeline thought for a moment. If she just ignored the letter, the girl would only pester her more. Adeline thought for a moment. If she just ignored the letter, the girl would only pester her more. And since she's the main character, she has to be extra careful with her. The girl decided that she would behave like a brute, so she could get rid of her. Then she turned to the maid and asked if they could prepare her dress for the ball in that time. But that's how you can call for the same event a week before the actual event? Anna told the mistress not to say that. After all, she absolutely has to go there. And if you tell the masters that the dress is needed for the ball, they will prepare it very quickly. Besides, Lady Diana will be around. She won't be lonely. But in fact, the girl wants to cry because she doesn't want to go like that. And after a while, Adeline was already ready for the ball and arrived at the main character's estate. Liana, when she saw the girl, said that she had lost so much weight. Apparently she was really sick, and asked if everything was okay now. Adeline asked, "Is it possible to be sick in some way? Not for real." She added afterward that Liana would have made the sick one go with her too. The girl was shocked and asked what she meant by that. But Adeline said it was nothing. She was just joking and everything was fine now. She was healthy. Then they went to the wagon, and Liana said she was very glad she was feeling better. Adeline thought it was all nonsense. All she cared about was that she wasn't going to the prince alone. Then they went to the wagon. Liana opened the door and told her to get in because they had to go. After a while, they arrived at a clothing store. When they went inside, they were greeted by a salesman who told them to have a good look around. Adeline said okay, and also thanked him for paying attention to them. They immediately looked at her in surprise. Then the girl realized that she had been overly polite again. Then the salesman smiled and said that her greeting had touched him so much. He doesn't even know where to put himself. Then he said he wanted to give her some jewelry he was saving for a special occasion. Adeline was surprised and said it wasn't worth it. Liana looked angrily at the girl at this point. Adeline didn't understand what she wanted and why she was looking like that. Then she rejoiced at the salesman and asked if she could ask for another one for her friend Liana. The salesman, turning around, said that of course he would bring everything now. And Liana, who was standing a little behind, was very happy about it. Then the protagonist turned to Adeline and said that was why she was especially enjoying her company. She doesn't know how to say such words. But the girl was surprised and asked what was so difficult about commonplace politeness. She could use to learn that too. At that moment, Adeline thought that Liana was different from the main character in the novel after all. After a while, as the girls began to look at the mannequins, a salesman approached Adeline and asked if he could help her. He took one of the dresses and said she had a lovely narrow steel and he thought this dress would be perfect for her. Then he gave her the dress and asked her what she thought of it. Adeline looked at it carefully and thought it was very beautiful. The girl is used to buying clothes online and never bothered with the choice. This is the true pleasure of shopping. And after thinking about it, Adeline said it was gorgeous. Afterward, she asked him to package it. The seller replied that they would deliver it to her house. But at that moment, Liana came up to them. She had a dress in her hands. She asked the girl to take a look and tell her how she liked it. Or does the beige look lifeless after all? Adeline smiled and said it suited her very well. But the girl said she looked at it and didn't like it at all. Well, it's been an hour. Liana still couldn't decide on her dress. She brought the girl different options and asked her what she wanted. Adeline said that everything suited her. But it had been 2 hours, and the girl still wouldn't listen to her and said it wasn't right. By that time her legs were very sore. The girl's legs were aching very badly, for she had not yet recovered from her illness. And then suddenly, when Adeline looked out the window, she saw that the sun was already setting. The girl was very surprised at that. At that moment, Liana approached her again and asked that the girl look carefully to see if she should take the fan to her dress. But Adeline said she didn't know. And the dress is beautiful and she's a beauty. Is a fan so important in a situation like this? Liana just stared at her for a while, and then said she had changed. She'd always looked at everything carefully before, but then she asked Adeline if maybe it was because she was jealous. After all, she was gradually getting closer to the crown prince. Then the girl interrupted her, so that Liana didn't even have time to finish her sentence, and asked her what she was talking about. The main character said that she talks to her so coldly. She thinks it's probably because she's jealous. Adeline didn't understand what this nonsense was. She hadn't been in this world that long, and she hadn't even seen the prince's face. But then the girl calmed down a little, and thought that she was understandable after all. The real Adeline behaved differently. Adeline said she's just not feeling well yet. She's tired and she's going to rest. Let Liana understand her, but she had to do something on her own. The girl became even more indignant and asked what she was talking about. Liana added that she was definitely acting like that because she was jealous. Adeline had no way of understanding how that logic worked, and she shouted that it didn't at all. It was really time for her to go without it once in a while. And if she wants to, let her continue to get close to the crown prince. She doesn't care about that at all. Tears started to well up in Liana's eyes, and she told the girl firmly that she had indeed changed. After that, she handed the dress to the salesman, turned around, and said she was leaving. Adeline was surprised to hear this. As the door slammed shut, the girl thought she was sorry she had yelled at Liana, but she was too different from her original version. Something wasn't right there. Adeline then approached the salesman and apologized for them bothering him with this. But the man said it was okay. The dresses would be brought to them. Then the girl gathered her thoughts and left the store, but was very surprised when she went outside, because there was no carriage. Adeline couldn't believe that Liana had just taken off, leaving her alone. The girl couldn't believe that this was the kindest soul Liana was, as they described her. Adeline didn't go on her carriage only because she asked for it. Then the girl decided that she needed to check with the salon to see if they could contact her house. Then she turned around to go back to the store. But at that moment, Someone called out to her. When she turned around, she saw Estian, the head of the Imperial Order of Knights, in front of her. He's also a secondary male character. Estian Blamov, his full name. He's unrequitedly in love with Liana. But of course he knows that the Crown Prince is also interested in her. And because of her loyalty to him, she hides her feelings for him. The girl thought he needed to. About 5 minutes ago, then he would have run into Liana. But then she realized that if she hadn't pissed the girl off, the two of them would have faced him alone. After a long silence, the guy said hello to the girl. Adeline immediately responded with a greeting to the knight Blavomov. The guy lowered his head and said they had agreed to communicate informally. Adeline was very surprised by this, for she didn't know such a rule because she had only recently moved into this body. Then the girl thought that the heroine is very easy to get close to people, so surely she must have already befriended him many times. But the girl has a completely different character in life. After thinking it over, Adeline said that she hadn't recovered from her illness that long ago, so she wasn't quite at her wit's end yet. She then said she would call him Knight Estian and asked him if that would suit him, but the man remained silent. And after that, he asked if she was completely healthy already, because she shouldn't be walking the streets alone. The girl replied that she was perfectly fine. She arrived at the salon together with Liana, but they quarreled, so the girl left first. Then Estienne smiled and said that he too had personal matters to attend to. He was without a horse and without a carriage. He also told the girl that if she didn't mind, he could walk her home. Looking at the guy, Adeline realized that apparently it wasn't the first time for him to suggest such things. And come to think of it, she herself suggested that the secondary character should be a villain who changes women like gloves, because usually bad guys like that are successful. My friend was shocked. She said it was just disgusting. Well, then the girl said that's why he's a minor character. After he meets the main character, he'll pick up his mind. And in that moment, Adeline realized that she was the one who made him up like that in real life. It even made her scared. In fact, Estienne is a notorious womanizer, a rogue character with perfect looks who is impossible not to fall in love with. In fact, this character and appearance is completely in line with Adeline's real-life flavor. But at this moment, Estienne looked at the girl. Then he came closer to her, put his hand on her forehead and said that she had somehow turned pale. Did she have a fever? The girl was surprised that he suddenly touched his hand to her forehead and wondered if Adeline was really that close to him, or that's exactly how womanizers act. She pulled her hand away immediately, but Estienne said that if she still didn't feel well, he could carry her home. Adeline said no, it was enough for her that he would just walk her out. She could make it on her own. The boy smiled. After that, he took her hand and they walked towards the house. The girl was actually very uncomfortable. The girl decided to break the awkward silence and said that he must have been doing some off-duty work, since he was wearing normal clothes. Estienne replied that it was true. Adeline smiled and said that she just wanted to point out that even out of uniform he was very handsome. The guy looked at her playfully and said she looked just gorgeous today too. Adeline was shocked by this, but she blushingly thanked and said it was nice to hear. Afterwards, she said she definitely demanded that he was not just a womanizer, but cold and unapproachable. But right now the girl didn't realize where he was being cold. He even looks at her defiantly. After a while, the sun was already starting to set, and they finally arrived. When they stopped near the front gate, Estienne asked if she had gone to the salon to pick out a dress for the ball. Adeline said yes, and then she asked if he was a knight, so he'd be there too. Estienne laughed and said that he was the one who had destroyed most of the monsters of the northern forests, and it was strange enough to ask such a thing, because the ball is in honor of their victory over them. Adeline felt uncomfortable, because she didn't know that. But then suddenly their conversation was interrupted by the butler, who ran out and asked why it was that the lady had returned so late. Estienne kissed the girl's hand and said he was honored to walk her all the way to the gate. The girl said she was immensely grateful to him for not having to worry about her safety on the way home. The guy moved closer to her. He also then told her to get a good night's rest. He hoped she'd be fully recovered by the celebration. He then started to leave and said that they would see each other at the ball. Adeline said of course they would. When the guy left, Adeline thought about the fact that she felt like her heart was going to stop from embarrassment, but she even had a better time than she bargained for. After that, she wondered about the ball. She'd have to go anyway, but she didn't think anything would come of going once, and she's grateful to Estienne. When the girl entered the manor, Anna ran to her at once and said that Lady Liana sent them word that the girl had decided to stay and watch, the brothers being already without her, and asked, had the lady been in the parlor all this time? Adeline replied that of course not. Liana just left her and drove away, taking the wagon herself. Anna was shocked and asked, did the girl really walk home, and she was alone? Leaving, the girl said that she was lucky to meet the knight Blomoff. He walked her home. She said it was such a relief. She was sure she was perfectly safe with him. The maid then replied that she would go and prepare her water for her bath, and let the girl rest for the time being. When the door closed, Adeline sat down on the bed and was glad that she was alone. She was very tired. Afterwards, she wondered, had Liana always treated the real Adeline this way? Aspects of her life were barely mentioned in the novel, and the girl just couldn't believe that it was always like this. The appearance, character, and even the speech peculiarities of the characters. The girl created all this thoughtlessly. After all, it's just a novel for fun, and even Estion, if it weren't for her strange plotting, he'd be the most ordinary character no one pays attention to. Adeline, sitting on the bed, thought that from the moment they had met, she had begun to be overcome by a strange sense of guilt. And so there has been absolutely no word from Liana since that incident, and it's been quite some time since then. Adeline was certainly uncomfortable, but she decided not to do anything about it. After all, this was what she wanted all along. One day, as the girl was sitting in the gazebo, Anna came up to her and said that Madame had already fully recovered. Wasn't she going to go out already? The girl looked at her and said she felt a little tired. Still, she would also be there drinking tea and talking to someone, so it would be better to stay home and chat with her. Then Anna got embarrassed and said that she would bring her more sweets now. At that moment, the girl thought for a moment that even a few days of such a vacation couldn't tire her out. And the more the better. Adelina enjoys this atmosphere very much, but when she was about to drink tea, she heard some strange rustling. In the bushes, the girl thought that perhaps it was some wild animal. It's a pretty big estate, so there might be something there. It was very surprising to the girl, but she didn't pay much attention. And so the day finally came. Anna came to Mistress in the morning and started to wake her up. The maid pulled the blanket off the girl and told her that this was the day, and they were having a ball, so she should prepare herself properly. Adeline shivered from the cold as the maid removed the blanket and said that the ball was in the evening, and she could just lie down for a while. After a while, Anna still managed to get the lady out of bed, and the maid told her to apply the powder so that it would lie as naturally as possible. When she was done with her makeup, she proceeded to her legs and gave them a good massage, saying it was so her legs wouldn't get tired all day. And so hours later, Adelina was finally in her beautiful dress and with beautiful makeup, ready for the ball. When the preparation was finished, Anna looked at the end result and told Mistress that she looked just gorgeous. Adeline smiled and thanked the maid, saying it was all her effort. And at that moment she thought about how long it had been since she had been so beautiful. She felt as if it was the weekend and she was dressing up to go to a club. When evening came, Adeline got into her carriage and arrived at the Crown Prince's estate. Getting out of the carriage, the girl thought that Liana was rather fearful and shy. That was why they always went together. But in such a situation, the girl doesn't know if everything will be all right. Then she thought maybe she should wait and apologize. But as she walked a little further down the street, she heard someone talking. The voices were very familiar to her, so she decided to check it out. And at that moment, Adeline walked into the room and saw Liana, who was talking to the other guests, saying that she didn't know what was in Adeline's head, but she had become completely different. The girl herself didn't understand what was even going on. But after that, the other girls who were standing next to Liana spoke up. One of them said that it was so selfish to treat her like that, and another said she thought Lady Adeline was just jealous. After all, she's so close to the Crown Prince. But Lillian said that the girl was not like that at all, of course. Only she herself knows what is in her heart. Adeline got very angry when she heard that. After all, Liana pretends to be protective, but at the same time makes the girl look bad. Let Adeline's characters change, but the girl still doesn't understand how on earth she can do such a thing. Even though Adeline's character has changed, the girl still doesn't understand how on earth she can do such a thing. After all that, the girl thought she needed some fresh air and went out to the balcony. In fact, she couldn't even think that Lilia was capable of such a thing. After all, she'd never been such a two-faced schemer. Adeline would love to grab her by the hair and find out. After calming down a bit, she concluded to herself that she was not suited for such places. After that, she began to gaze at the stars. And so, having calmed down completely and gotten her wits about her, she returned to the hall, where there were already a number of different guests. Then after a while someone's voice was heard saying, "Brave and mighty lion of the empire, His Majesty the Emperor." And with those words, 3 men entered the hall. The oldest man said that as they already knew, today they were celebrating the extermination of monsters in the northern forests. The empire expresses its gratitude to all the marquises, to the earls as well as the knights who took part in this great struggle. It is only thanks to them that they have now made this ball. And no great loss. The man told the guests to forget everything and just enjoy this beautiful evening. Adeline. Looking around, she sees many different orders of knighthood, but she doesn't know anyone but Julie, who is guarding her. Then she looked at a man in a black uniform with beautiful dark hair. The girl thought he looked cold, but still very cool. And the ladies who were standing next to her began to whisper and said that His Majesty was still in good health and good looking. The girl with short hair said that the crown prince would be ascending the throne soon, and she didn't know if he would retain that lion aura. Her friends said she had been able to watch him hunt a few years ago. His Highness drank the power of his sword, and it glowed with red flame. Adeline, hearing their conversation, remembered what they had discussed with her friend as well. But there was one important point. They only talked about it for the sake of a joke, and they didn't end up adding those details to the book. But at that moment, she was interrupted from her musings. It was Liana. She approached the girl and addressed her. The main character apologized for that time and said that she acted like a child. After that, she smiled. Adeline already thought she wouldn't apologize, so proud. But Liana said that His Highness was there, by the way, and now it all made sense to the girl. She wants Adeline to take her to the prince to talk to him. This is when she apologizes and pretends nothing happened, only to make her look like an idiot again a second later. This made Adeline very angry. So she said that she hoped the girl had had enough of talking about everything, and she figured there would be someone here to take her to the prince. After that, she asked why it necessarily had to be her. But Liliana was surprised. She asked the girl what she was talking about, but Adeline ignored her questions and told her to remember to talk to him about what she had accused her of back then. And at that moment, Lilia heard people whispering. Someone said that Lady Liliana must have been gossiping about Adeline. Another said he didn't think she would dare do something like that again. No one cared for Lillian as much as Adeline did. At this point, the girl had tears in her eyes. She couldn't bear the pressure, turned around and started to walk away. Adeline sighed. Not that she was sorry, but she thought the girl was just used to Adeline always being around her. And so, after some more time, Adeline went out to the balcony again to get some fresh air. She wondered if she'd had too much wine, and then realized that it just couldn't be. After all, she had been drinking beer for so many years, and in considerable quantities. Then she decided that she should go back to the gym, and when the girl was about to take a step, she accidentally twisted her foot. Adeline could have fallen, but at that moment, a man picked her up and told her to be careful. It was Mr. Estienne, of course. He said he wasn't sure the girl would come. Then he touched her forehead again and said she must have a fever and asked if she wasn't feeling well. Adeline said she wouldn't say no at all. It was just from the wine, and thought to herself that apparently this man certainly had no concept of personal boundaries. Estienne smiled, and after that they went out into the hallway and sat on a bench. Then the boy asked if she had something wrong, but the girl immediately replied that she didn't, and asked why he thought she had something on her face. Then Estienne looked straight into her eyes and said that she had only her beauty on her face. She was just beautiful. Adelina opened her mouth in surprise. Then the guy laughed and said that he hadn't even expected to embarrass her. Then he added that he must have had too much to drink too, so he was saying all sorts of things. Adelina looked at him at that moment and thought he was handsome. After a brief silence, Estienne said that she had quarreled with Lady Diana. The girl was surprised and said did he really remember that, but then thanked him but said it was all wine. So-and-so looked at her and asked if that meant they'd worked things out with Liana. But Adelina got embarrassed and said not yet. Of course she could lie to him now, not that she had nothing at all to say. If you think about it that way, it's very similar to the situation where she'd laid it all out for him, about Liana leaving her. The girl herself doesn't know why, but she feels completely different with Estienne. Then the girl said whether she was spreading different rumors about her. The girl seemed to be very upset. Certainly Adeline could understand her, but she was angry herself, so it seems to have ruined the girl's mood some more. But in that moment she wondered if it was like a child was acting like one. After all, Liana had scolded her, so she decided to scold her back. But Estion said that if a person spreads unfounded rumors, let him be prepared to be held accountable for it. And Adeline didn't ruin anything. On the contrary, she fixed everything, and the girl was good enough to stand up for herself. The girl, hearing this, was amazed, for she had never before in her life received such support. Besides, it must be meant for more than just her, and the girl wondered if anything like that had been said in Adeline herself, and was there anyone at all who praised her and comforted her in difficult moments. The guy's words awakened so many feelings in her, and in the heroine herself. This caused Adeline to have tears. When Estion noticed this, he gave her a tissue and told her to take it. He then added that he thought it would be better for them to go back already, otherwise people would start thinking something. The girl thanked him. Adeline, wiping away my tears, she said she'd bring it back, clean it herself, and make sure to return it. The guy told her to keep it. Afterwards, he said he thought it would be better if he walked her home. Adeline smiled and said, okay, she wouldn't mind. She then added that there was a carriage waiting for her downstairs, so you could just walk her down to it. The young people then descended and approached the wagon, which was already waiting for Adeline. Estion immediately told the wagoner that the lady had drunk a little wine, so let him drive more carefully. When Adeline got inside anyway, she thanked the guy for everything, and told him that she would definitely repay him for the day. Estion smiled and said, she speaks straight like a knight doing his duty. At this point, the girl thought, absolutely. After all, she still had some habits from her past life. And at that moment, Estion moved even closer to her. The girl was afraid. If someone saw them from afar, they might be misunderstood. But the guy told her to show her healthy smile next time. After that, he wished her a good journey. As the door slammed shut, Adeline didn't realize if it was the disrespect that made her worry. But still, he was so cool. And of course, she understands why the guy is popular, even though he's called a womanizer and his reputation isn't the best. It was already late at night when Adeline finally returned to her home. She was immediately greeted by Anna, the maid. Put it in mistress in bed, she said, all the while being told she wasn't allowed to drink alcohol, by her physique. She even fainted, didn't she? Adeline, who could hardly speak anymore, apologized to the maid and said that she had forgotten. It was Adeline who could not sing, but she could sing very well. Covering her mistress with a blanket, Anna said she never thought Liana would act like this. All this time Adeline had been so good to her. The girl said she hasn't been taking care of her as much lately, understandably. Why? Because she's sad. Adelina also said that she got angry too and brought Liana to tears. Anna, upon hearing this, got excited and said that she was good for her. It needed to be done soon, before the rumors spread. In that moment, Adeline thought that there was no one who had been on her side before, and really liked having someone like that around now. Then she wondered, would it be possible to continue not going to all sorts of events? A few meters away from the castle would be enough for her. After a while, Anna turned off the light and said that if she suddenly felt sick, just have her ring the bell. The girl thanked her. After that, she turned on her side and started to fall asleep. Adeline began to analyze the day that had passed and the situations. She thought about what had happened and wondered if her interactions with Estion could be considered flirting, but he is in truth a ladies' man, so it's no wonder he has a way with women. The girl looked out the window and thought that she could probably know this if she were the real Adeline. A swanky imperial palace, a terrace that blows in the warm breeze, and Estion, who is always there to help. It's all like a dream to her. The next morning when Adeline woke up, Anna was helping her put on her new dress. The girl at this moment thought that it was certainly very pleasant, because she was being dressed up in it. But how painful it was for her to get into the corset anew every time. Adeline was almost out of breath, and she asked the maid if she had had enough. She said no, and she asked why she was having such a hard time. But it was so hard for her, since she had never done it before. It took a while for the outfit to finally be finished. Adeline looked in the mirror and saw a beautiful reflection. She hadn't even realized that she would be so enamored with the dressy gowns, even though the corset was uncomfortable. After that, the girl went down to her parents' house for breakfast. Her father said he was worried that she had to stay at the castle for a while, but she seemed to like everything. Still, he told her to try to take it easy. Then Mom intervened and said that some people were saying that she had come alone yesterday without Liana. Adeline didn't say anything to this, but just sat there and watched. Then the woman said that it was great that she cared for her friends so much. She, as a mother, felt sorry for all this concern for just her. But she was very happy that things had turned out this way, and said that the girl was very much on point. But Adeline didn't say anything back to that either. After breakfast, the girl went out into the arbor and sat pondering that it was good that the prince and his wife were such good people. At this point, Mr. Jules came up to her and said he had heard about her drinking last night. Adeline asked if the rumors had already gotten around. After that, she replied that she wasn't hungover, so he shouldn't worry. The guy said that everything was fine then. However, he heard that the girl had cause for concern. She was surprised and asked if he meant the quarrel with Liana. But without waiting for a reply, she said that she was just writing a letter because of it. But Jules was genuinely surprised to hear this, and said that it was also a cause for excitement, but afterward added that he had heard that Estienne Blamo had come out to escort her to the carriage. Adeline was surprised to hear that. She didn't realize how tired he was about it. Did rumors really spread so quickly? Well, the guy told her not to worry because she found out about it from Kutcher, so there would be no rumors. The girl was happy and said that it wasn't that she wanted to hide it. She just didn't think it was necessary to tell everyone about it on purpose. Jewel agreed with her and said that the rumors about him were not good, and the guy thinks she should know about it. Adeline thought she was saying he was one of the womanizers and bar hoppers and all that. However, he wasn't such a drain on society. The reason she was afraid of rumors because of being with Estienne, not because of his reputation at all. The girl was afraid she wouldn't like such a popular guy. The girl has had no experience with men, so she is very scared. Is she giving it too much thought? She's also very afraid of Estienne's reaction when he returns. When she wanted to start writing a letter, Jewel addressed her again, and said she could think of him as just a troubled soul of a knight. Adeline said of course, and thanked him for his concern. After that, she began to write her letter. The girl wrote that she thinks she was too violent at the reception at the imperial house. She also thinks it was because she was not fully recovered. For a while, Adeline will be able to attend different events because she seems to be weaned off the social life. And at the end, she added that if Liana ever needed help escorting her, the girl would be happy to help. After rereading this, Adeline decided to add one more thing, writing that she had seen her talking to others, and that the girl didn't really have anything about her in mind about the prince. She also asked that Liana tell everyone so. After that, the girl decided that would be enough, and now she could rest. But at that moment, she remembered the handkerchief that had been given her last night, and was now lying in her room. Adeline had washed it, of course, but she didn't know if she could just take it and return it. It would be more polite to return it with something, like appetizers. Then she called Mr. Jules and said that she had borrowed the handkerchief and wasn't sure if she should just return it. She asked him what he thought was the best thing to do. The man said that when it comes to a handkerchief, they usually do some kind of embroidery on it. Adeline, hearing this, could even be said to be pleased. She was encouraged that she would give the handkerchief for a reason. But when the girl finally tried it, it didn't work out the way she expected. All her hands were stabbed with a needle. Jules, coming up to her, said she was trying so hard, and the girl replied that embroidery was much harder than she thought. Then the lad looked carefully at the lady and asked if she was going to give this embroidery to Sir Estienne. Adeline said she did, but if she had known it would be so difficult, she would have just gotten him a gift of beef jerky. Jules said that if he had known it was for the commander of the knights, who wouldn't have suggested embroidery, and asked if maybe she should better call Anna. Adeline thought for a moment, but then said no. She would try it herself first. And with these words, she began to thread the needle. In fact, she was already sorry enough for pinning that stupid attitude on him. She wanted to personally cultivate a sense of gratitude to Estienne, who was genuinely comforting her. But when she looked at what she had managed to embroider after a while, she thought it was more like she was picking a fight. Sewing and embroidery were different things after all. But Jules insisted and told the lady to leave it to Anne. The girl said not at all. It was almost done. She only had to embroider flowers, and that was it. And at that moment they heard a great rustling. Then Adeline said that the last time she had gone into the garden the other day, something had also rushed past. It was something like a small animal. Jules became very serious. He told the girl that if she saw something like that again, she should tell her at once, and that he would go and see what was there first. In that moment, Adeline thought, it didn't seem so dangerous, whatever it was. She hoped they would get by without any deaths. After a while, Jules returned to the girl, with some girl standing next to him. The man said he thought the lady had seen the child. The girl says she lived all this time by walking the streets, and entered their house when she saw the flowers on the fence, and was lost in the garden. When the man finished speaking, the girl immediately began to apologize, saying that she just really loved the flowers and had not torn or stolen them in any way. The girl said she was really just admiring them. She didn't have a bad thought in her mind. Adeline, after thinking it over for a while, said it was all right, she was just lost. It happens to everyone. And then she asked her name. The girl replied that her name was Elle, but the woman might not speak to her so formally. Adeline took the little girl's hands and said that the garden was quite large and confusing. She must have had a hard time seeing everything there, and asked if she wanted to look at it with her. Ella was surprised to hear that. Then they left the gazebo, and the girl asked if she could really walk around like that and not get beaten up for it. Adeline said no. She had not stolen a single flower. Elle said yes, let her believe her. She knows that flowers can't be carelessly torn, so she didn't steal anything. And after a while they came to a beautiful gazebo to which 2 bridges led. The girl immediately ran up and, looking up, said it was the first time she had ever seen such a huge and beautiful flower garden. Elle said there's even a tram and luffy flower, and even a rose tree. Adeline smiled as she looked at the girl and said that she was very good with colors after all. Elle said that's what she says. She thinks it's because she often comes across gifts. Lots of different wildflowers. The girl patted the girl on the head and said she was so good. After a while, Elle was already sitting in tidy clothes. She thanked Adeline for dressing her and feeding her, and she didn't even know how to thank her. But at the end she called her mistress. Adeline was very angry and said she could just call her by her first name. Elle was very surprised and asked how on earth she could address a lady from a noble family simply by her first name. Then the girl said that she does not often go out and mostly has fun in this garden. But she was very glad that the girl came and kept her company. She enjoyed it very much. So let her do as she says. But Ella said she still couldn't, and decided she would call her Lady Adeline. Then the girl looked around the table and saw the embroidery. Then she asked if she was embroidering and said that it was very beautiful. Elle asked if it was a flower or some kind of medicinal herbs. She just doesn't know. The girl said that apparently she still had a lot of colors to learn. Adeline thought it was because she was trying to embroider something. But then she asked the girl if there was any simple flower that would express gratitude. She is going to give this one back to the person who helped her, but she is not strong in embroidery. Elle asked, in such a case, what about Alice's flower? It means warmth, gratitude, and affection. Yes, and besides, he looks very pretty. After that, the girl took a sheet of paper and drew it, saying that it looked like this. Adeline, seeing this, told the girl that she drew beautifully, and thought to herself that if she had gone to study gardening or art, she would have done wonderfully well. Afterward, she thanked the girl and said she would definitely try to use the flower. After a while, Adeline embroidered a flower on a napkin. Elle, when she saw it, said it was very beautiful. The girl said it was all just because of the girl, but Elle turned her attention to the girl's hands, and asked if she had pricked her fingers so many times, asking what to do. But Adeline said it was nothing. Then she asked the girl if she could stay the night. Elle could sleep in her room, but the girl asked what it was she was saying. How dare she sleep in her room? And besides, she had things left in the place where she was staying, so she definitely needs to go back to sleep there for the night. But she is grateful for the girl's concern. Adeline said okay. She thought the girl had said she'd lived her life hanging around the streets and never complained. She must have grown up too soon. After that, the girl walked her to the gate and gave her some food for the journey. Elle said that she had given her a great deal. Adeline said it was no big deal and added that the girl could come to her any time. Ella thanked her once more and then went to her room. The girl waved goodbye. When evening came, Adeline packed the doily she had embroidered and added a note to it. It thanked her and said he'd helped her a lot at the ball, and this is a small token of appreciation. Then the girl asked Anna if she could give the gift to Sir Estienne. The maid said that of course she would. After that she left, turning off the light and wishing the girl good night. Adeline immediately went to her bed and started to fall asleep. But before she did, she thought she was so relieved, for she had even sent the handkerchief. The next morning Anna came to the girl and told her that Sir Estienne asked for an audience. The girl was very surprised at this, and the maid said that he had said he would come to see her after work, about 5 o'clock. Adeline was shocked. She hadn't expected him to come straight to her. Did he really enjoy embroidery so much? Then Anna said that she knew the men would handle it quietly on their own, but she knew about the rumors about Sir Estienne after all. Adeline said that of course she hadn't heard. However, when she met him in person, he was very kind. The maid was indignant and asked where she had seen such a man who would write on his forehead, "I am such and such a man." A lady should be more careful. Afterward, Adeline decided to rehearse how she would meet Estienne, and dressed up even. The girl stood near the mirror and rehearsed her speech as she went down to him and asked him what the occasion was for which he had come to see her. But then she realized it was a terrible question, because of course it was because of the embroidery. The girl became embarrassed at just the thought and the other epithet. Alone with a guy? She doesn't even know what she's going to say. That kind of excitement is inherently thrilling. But she must not wait for this meeting. After that, the girl looked at her hands, which were all taped up. She thought that the embroidery was strange, and that she didn't know what to talk about. And on top of that, even her hands were in such a terrible state. It really upset her. Then Adeline thought it might be better to refuse him the meeting, at least for now. But then she resolutely stopped herself, and she thought she could just hide her hands. It wasn't that she wanted to meet, but she was curious to know why he wanted to meet first. When evening came, the girl was already sitting in the gazebo waiting for her guest. When Estienne came in, they just sat there in silence. The girl definitely thought he had come to talk about the handkerchief, but she didn't understand why he didn't say anything. But then suddenly the guy said he got the shawl from her and asked if she did the embroidery herself. Adeline was a little startled at first, but said that yes, she wanted to thank him for helping her that time, but her embroidery had gotten too sloppy. The guy said she was very beautiful, so much so that it's a shawl now a pity to wear for fear of getting it dirty. But she said he was probably just embarrassed to wear it. Estienne said he wasn't at all. He looked very serious. Afterward, he asked the girl which flower. She came out. At him the girl answered that this flower was called Alice. It means warmth, gratitude, and also affection. Estienne, hearing the last word, was very surprised and looked at the girl in that way, that it made her uncomfortable and she regretted what she'd said, thinking she should have ended on thank you. Then, to somehow remedy the situation, Adeline said she thought this flower would be the best way to express her gratitude. Estienne said he liked it a lot, and yes, the brilliant light green color of the leaves is like her eyes. The girl had not expected such a compliment. She was shy and said that in principle, yes, it could look like that. After that, they began to be silent again. When the girl watched her guest take the cup, she thought that the tea was still hot and he might burn himself. And at that moment, Estienne tilted the cup even more, so that the tea was almost starting to drip. The girl yelled for him to be careful, and accidentally pulled out her hands that she was going to hide. The guy at this point grabbed her hand and started holding it tightly, saying afterward that he thought so. Estienne added in a serious voice that if things had gotten this far, she could safely leave it to the maid. Adeline really didn't want to get caught, but it didn't work out. Then she said it didn't really hurt as much as it looked, and he also embarrassed her a little. Then the guy let go of her hand, apologized, and said it was just her hands. He interrupted himself mid-sentence, and Adeline was shocked. She didn't understand what he was even doing. So she said he really didn't need to worry. She just wanted to rest, so she put bandages around it. She added afterward that she wasn't a simian. She just really wasn't good at embroidery. Estienne didn't answer anything, just stared and smiled. Adeline then asked how he knew her hands were in that condition. The man said she didn't even drink tea. All she did was hold her hands down, hiding them from him. And besides, it didn't seem like she was that much of an expert at embroidery. The girl laughed nervously. After those words, she no longer felt awkward. Rather, she was even annoyed by the reaction her hands had caused. Estienne said he didn't care about her embroidery skills. It came out very beautifully, and he liked the meaning of the flower warmth and affection too. However, now that he'd seen her hands, apparently he definitely wouldn't be able to use them. Adeline wondered where to do the thanking, since that was the purpose of her gift. Of course, she'd given him that attitude. But he's so good at it. But at that moment, the guy said he thought she needed to bandage them again. Adeline was surprised and asked what he meant. Then he pointed his finger at her bandages, which had already begun to unwind, and the girl said that indeed, and she hadn't noticed. But Estienne said he would be happy to help her, and with those words he began to do the bandaging. When all the bandages were back in place, the girl took her hands back and thanked him, telling him that he had done a very good job. Estienne got up from the table and said that it was common for him to dress wounds, suggesting that we continue the conversation over a walk. They walked for so long that dusk was beginning to fall. Adeline laughed and said that she seemed to owe him every time. Estienne said she could keep it up, and he would be very much okay with that. He then looked at her and asked her if she hadn't been busy helping others around her all this time. The girl wondered who he meant, but then she thought maybe Liana. Well, even if he wasn't talking about her, Adeline was everyone's favorite. Well, then the guy looked at her and said, "Shouldn't there have been at least one person she could be in debt to?" The girl looked at him with a loving gaze. After that, she looked away quickly, thinking that she shouldn't give in to this so easily. She shouldn't forget that he can say that to anyone, so the girl needs to keep her honor and dignity. When it was already heavily evening, they reached the gate, and Adeline thanked him, saying it was getting late and he should be careful on his way home. Estienne reached out and took her hand before kissing it and telling her that he wanted to see her again. The girl was shocked. She couldn't even say anything back to him. Adeline was very embarrassed by the situation. When the guy started to leave, the girl thought she was in trouble, but she wanted so badly for time to stop. In the evening, when she returned to her manor house sitting on her bed, she talked to Anna. The maid asked if she had spoken to the commander of the knights. He had stayed with them for a long time. The girl said that yes. The conversation had gone on a bit long. Eldeno replied, "It's good that she talked, but she doesn't expect Mistress to get too close to him. After all, she doesn't want to see which one's hurt." Adeline thought that Anna was always worried about her, but she would not be attending high society events for a while, which meant she would have no reason to go to the imperial palace, and thus they were unlikely to meet Sir Estienne. The girl was still in shock. She didn't understand why on earth he had said those words to her. Those words also made her want to see him again. Adeline interrupted herself at that because she decided she needed to stop thinking about it. In fact, unlike what was going on in her head, her daily life had been peaceful and calm for over a week now. The girl drank tea regularly while sitting in the garden and also enjoyed reading a history book in her room. But a few things still bugged her, namely the fact that Liana wasn't answering her anything. In fact, this girl wasn't the type to not respond to such emails, and Adeline was already starting to get worried, thinking something was up. Then she asked the maid about the girl who had come to the garden last time, and she hadn't been there either. Anna replied that she had not seen her since. Adeline thought she has a hard life. Maybe that's why it's hard for her to come. She's a strong girl, of course, but she's still a child. And the last thing that was most unexpected was that Estienne began to visit the girl every night. Without saying anything in particular, for about an hour or two, he would come to have tea with her and then leave afterward. One such evening, Adeline asked if it was hard for him to come to her after work, but the guy just smiled and said nothing. The girl didn't understand why he was acting like that. So why does Estienne keep coming to her at the same time day after day? But this day the atmosphere around Estienne was different from the previous ones. The girl noticed that he looked very tired. She even noticed that he didn't come to her in the form of a knight, and later than usual. Then when Anna approached her, Adeline told the maid to bring a special tea, thinking that after all he was a guest who had come all this way to visit her. So it should be a proper treat. When Anna made the tea and brought it over, after tasting it, Estienne said it was different from the usual tea. Adeline was worried and asked if it was unpalatable. After that, she explained that the worse the condition of his body, the bitterer the flavor of the tea becomes. The girl also said that if he drinks a whole teapot of this tea, then he will definitely feel better. Estienne was very surprised to hear this, but then the girl explained that she did it because he looked very tired. The boy smiled and asked if she was worried about him. Adeline didn't expect such a question, but said that yes, she was. The boy smiled and asked if she was worried about him. Adeline didn't expect such a question, but said that yes, she was. And she herself didn't understand why he was making her so uncomfortable. What was wrong with him in general? But still, if Estienne hadn't come, she might have even been upset. But then the guy had said that was why he kept coming to her. Adeline was still surprised that he kept saying something like that, as if nothing had happened. Though, truth be told, she doesn't hate it so much. You could even say that the girl is used to it. and is starting to like this kind of thing. But then Adeline noticed his clothes and realized that this was the shirt he was wearing when they met near the bar. The girl wondered, was the reason he was so tired exactly what she thought it was? But after that last time, he didn't come for 3 whole days. Adeline couldn't even sleep anymore because of the uneasy feeling in her heart. She didn't understand if something was wrong, or it could be much worse. But then the girl thought that Estienne is originally a person who likes to have fun, after all. But if without reason is really in what she's thinking, she doesn't understand why the hell he's been coming to her all this time. Adeline tried to reassure herself, and thought it was too early to speculate based only on the fact that he'd come in wearing the same shirt. Maybe something had happened. But then the girl remembered the Alice flower. She had already learned to embroider well from Anna. Now she would be able to do it beautifully. When Adeline passed the flower bed, she wondered if Elle was doing well there. But at that moment she heard a rustle in the bushes, and when she peeked in, she saw Elle, of course. The girl immediately ran up to the little girl and asked if she was okay. The girl apologized in a quiet voice for entering the garden again with her free will. She had been so kind to her last time, and when Elle wanted to thank her again, she fainted. Adeline didn't know what was going on. Then she quickly picked up the girl in her arms and immediately ran towards the manor. She was met at the entrance by a knight who was guarding her. When he saw the lady, he was very frightened and asked what was wrong. Adeline replied that a child seemed to have been hurt. When she asked, he quickly called the doctor. After Ella was brought into the manor and the doctor examined her carefully, the girl lay in bed and slept. The doctor said it's nothing to worry about because it's just a cold. But she also showed signs of malnutrition and signs of beatings. Her body condition was already bad, and the cold had taken an even more serious toll on her body. Then Anna looked at the mistress and asked if this was the child she kept asking about. Adeline nodded and said that the girl hadn't come back, so she thought she'd just forgotten about her, that's all. Adeline thought she shouldn't have let her go like that time. She should have left her, even though Ella had refused to spend the night. Suddenly Anna looked at the mistress and said that she had a very bad complexion, and that she should rest in the next room, but the girl said no, and she would stay with the girl. But the maid did not wish to hear any objection. She took the girl by the arm and led her to the door, saying that if trouble happened to her, this girl would not like it. Adeline said no, she should still be there, but Anna shooed her out the door and said she would tell her if she woke up. But for now, mistress should get a good night's sleep. The girl stood for a while and thought, would everything be all right after this? She sat down on the couch and didn't look up. Who had done this to the child? She kept wondering where it happened, at the place where the girl works, or just outside. And had Elle even eaten the food she'd put with her last time? At that moment, the girl covered her eyes for a second because they were just closing. But then suddenly she opened her eyes abruptly and wondered what she should do, how long she had slept, and if Elle was even okay. Adeline immediately ran into her room to see if the girl was all right. But when she came in, Ella was sitting on the bed and greeted her mistress cheerfully. Adeline was overjoyed when she saw that the girl was all right. She even had tears of joy in her eyes. The girl immediately approached Elle, saying that she shouldn't have let her go that time, and apologized to her. Elle was surprised and asked what she was talking about. She had saved her life again. The girls held hands. Adeline was very happy that the girl had opened her eyes. And so, when evening came, Elle told the whole story that had happened to her. Adeline asked, so does that mean that the street bullies took away her food, beat her and kept her from living? And when they saw the food she had brought with her, they said they would not beat her again if she brought them money and food. The girl said that was right. But she didn't come back to get money from the lady. She didn't even tell me about her. Elle said she came because she wanted to see that beautiful flower garden again. It's true, she's not lying. Adeline thought for a bit then and asked the girl, how about she relies on her a little? They are so close after all. However, she is very angry that she didn't use the things she gave her and took them to the bullies.